You see the Murdaugh murders. So my dad just told me about that. I didn't know anything about it. So this guy, Alex Murdaugh, was apparently like a really wealthy, like, what is it, a criminal defense attorney or something? And he was apparently embezzling money for a long time, a pathological liar, an oxy addict, and he snapped and killed his son and wife. I believe. I think it was his son and his wife. My dad was telling me all about it, apparently. Or, not apparently, my dad was telling me all about it. Apparently, it was a wild case, and I didn't hear shit about it. Yeah, apparently the prosecutors had a video that the son had recorded that proved that Alex Murdaugh was lying about his whereabouts on the night of the murders. So I guess the story was they were killed at like the dog kennels on their property. Alex Murdaugh claimed that he wasn't there that night at the kennels, and he had like a couple alibis because they had his whole phone record. Apparently he called a ton of people to try and get a couple alibis. And eventually the prosecutors showed a video that his son had recorded literally minutes before he was murdered by his dad. And I guess it took so long to surface. This had gone on for like 2 years or something. It took so long to surface because they couldn't get into the son's phone until recently, is what my dad said. And I didn't hear anything about it during this whole thing. His son he killed also got in a boat accident that killed a girl named Mallory Beach, and also was the only witness to his housekeeper dying, and he embezzled her life insurance. Oh, what the fuck? Holy shit, how deep does that go? He survived a gunshot that he survived a gunshot that he hired to kill him, but it didn't work out. I don't even know what that means. He hired a hitman on himself. What in tarnation? He hired the hitman to kill him so he could so his son could collect his life insurance. What?
What family members did you call?
I called my brother Randy, and I called my brother John. And I tried to call a little boy, real good friend that's right around the corner from here, but I didn't get him.
Okay.
Well then. What Netflix's Murdaugh Murders documentary didn't tell you about the story. What? They already have a documentary about it? Well, actually, I probably can't watch this if they show actual crime scene shit. Legal Eagle's video on it is really comprehensive. There's so much to the story, and there's another murder related to his son. Oh, this is 6 days ago. Alex Murdaugh shouldn't have testified. Well, yeah, didn't he get 2 life sentences for all of this? I don't think it would have mattered if he testified or not, right? They would have still had that video. Life sentence without parole for murdering his wife and son. It did matter because the jury said it made it a lot worse. But wouldn't that video still have surfaced? So they still would have caught him, right? There's a golden waffle comic in the prime conjunctivitis. But I just learned about this thing tonight from my dad giving me the Cliff Notes. So maybe his testimony really did matter a lot in catching him. Oh, the video was the reason he testified. Ah. Okay, that's interesting.
Alec
Let me just
Murdaugh
get like
convicted
a
after he testified in his own defense. Yeah, the Fifth Amendment exists for a very good reason, and District Attorney Scowell will explain why.
As the trial drew to a close, Los Angeles area double murder expert O.J. Simpson predicted that the Alec Murdaugh jury would acquit the Low Country lawyer of double murder. It turns out that Simpson's powers of prognostication don't really work for murders he wasn't directly involved in.
It wouldn't surprise me in the least if this guy beats this case.
The Juice was wise enough not to testify in his own criminal trial, whereas Murdaugh thought that testifying in his own defense might lead to an acquittal. It's easy to see how he made that mistake. Murdaugh men have been amongst the most prominent lawyers in Hampton County, South Carolina for nearly 100 years. So before I explain...
It's crazy. It is crazy. We have O.J. Simpson on Twitter dropping reaction videos, giving his opinion on how another murderer could potentially beat their case. That blows my mind. Thanks, the resub. Tynanic and Chris.
Why the Murdaugh Hail Mary play didn't work? Let's dig into the background of this disturbing case because it is truly bonkers. Lawyers from the Murdaugh family held the solicitor position in South Carolina's 14th Judicial Circuit for 87 years.
That's
South
a good
Carolina,
run. That's
a
a good run.
solicitor is an elected official who serves as the chief prosecutor for a judicial district. A judicial district usually covers multiple counties. It's basically a district attorney, but with a seersucker suit and a southern drawl. Randolph Murdaugh Sr. was elected solicitor in 1920 and served until he was killed by a freight train in 1940.
Sounds like a murder. That sounds like an actual old western murder where they tied him to the train tracks. Don't know the situation, it literally just sounds like he was murdered.
Now, some people suspected that the freight train incident was a suicide because no one could figure out why Randolph's car stalled on the tracks, but Murdaugh Sr. was succeeded by his son, Randolph Murdaugh Jr., known as Buster, who held the position for 46 years
Cool
from
nickname.
1940 to 1986. During Buster's long tenure, the Murdaugh family's private law firm flourished in the small town of Hampton, population 2,000, because of a unique South Carolina law that allowed people to file lawsuits against the railroad in any county in the state. The Murdaugh firm is referred to as the house that CSX built because they won so much money suing the railroads. Buster was known as a
Good.
win-at-all-costs
Just what we needed.
prosecutor. The South Carolina Supreme Court reprimanded Buster several times for improper jury arguments during death penalty cases. On 2 separate occasions, 20 years apart, he told jurors that if they didn't impose the death penalty on a criminal defendant, he would use his power as solicitor to release other rapists into the community. Yes, you heard that right.
What?
It's hard to imagine a worse thing a prosecutor could say in court, but I'm sure prosecutors have.
And he got to keep the position? He would make these threats like, okay, if he doesn't get the death penalty, 5 rapists will go into Gotham. He sounds like the Joker. What? How do you not, like, lose that job after the first threat? Thanks to the resub. Saturn, Abigail, Drin, Roxas, and the Tier 1 712, and the Prime Forg. And the Bits Adonis. That was his dad in the 70s. Well, I know we're talking about his dad. I'm saying, how did he not lose that position? Like, immediately. Elected official, so he just campaigns and pays off the right people. Yeah, but I'm sure there's still systems in place where if you're threatening to release rapists out of like a grudge, you can get fired. Like you can get like taken out. Like you lose your position, I would think. Because it was the 70s. It's not like rape was cool in the 70s either. I'm sure people weren't like rallying behind him like, yeah, that's fucking Buster right there. That's how Buster plays. Get the death penalty. Or 50 rapists. Buster, release 50 rapists into the neighborhood. He's a tier 1 Momo. Easy to cover up shit back then. True, yeah, maybe they didn't really know exactly what was happening at the time. Maybe. Yeah, that's a good point. I guess it's hard to know exactly what information was out there from these threats.
It's fair to assume that the citizens of the 14th Judicial Circuit just might be intimidated by a man who threatened to turn rapists loose as revenge. When Buster was done,
Fair assumption.
Buster's son, Randolph Murdaugh III, was elected solicitor and served until 2005. Now we've come full circle. Alex Murdaugh, the now convicted murderer, is Randolph III's son. Alex Murdaugh worked in the family law firm and also volunteered as an assistant solicitor. Alex continued his work with the solicitor's office until he himself was indicted for stealing from his clients and partners in 2022.
That's what my dad was talking
We're
about.
gonna get there. So here's a
A
question.
lot of financial crimes,
Are the
apparently.
Murdaughs corrupt? Well, there are open investigations into two separate suspicious
Maybe
deaths
Tier
that are
1's
linked
in.
to the family.
Tier 1
In
Slick, and the
2015,
resub
a
Woodley,
high
and
school
the Prime
student,
She.
Stephen Smith, was found dead in the middle of a Hampton County road. There were no tire marks or debris that would suggest a vehicle crash. At least one highway patrol investigator and the county coroner ruled the death a homicide, suggesting that the body was dumped on the road. A pathologist, however, concluded that Smith was likely struck by a passing vehicle's side mirror. Alex's oldest son, Buster, named for his grandfather, is mentioned dozens of times in the 2015 investigation reports.
Whoa.
Rumors
Wow.
swirled locally that Buster had been in a relationship with Smith. Alex and his brother Randy visited the scene and were seen going right through crime scene tape. The South Carolina State Law Enforcement Division reopened.
This is a lot. This is a lot. I'm gonna send this to my dad. I wonder if he even knew half this shit. This is crazy. So, his son, no saint. My dad's gonna love this one. He was glued to this trial, apparently. The guy really had rapists in the queue to join the server. Oh, you're talking about Buster still, yeah. I'm just going to take a guess that the other Murdaughs didn't use the same tactic.
Opened the investigation into Smith's death after officers found new evidence during their recent investigations into Alex Murdaugh.
Stephen Smith was killed on Sandy Run Road back in July of 2015. Investigators say his death was originally listed as a result of a hit and run. But his mother has many questions about that ruling. Now the South Carolina Department of Law Enforcement tells WSAV that information from the Murdaugh investigation has led them to reopen Smith's case. They would not say what evidence led to that decision or whether the Murdaugh family was involved in any way.
The second investigation. In 2018, Alex
Very uneducated here. I'm learning as we go. I'm just gonna say, his son probably did it. Like, yep. I'll just let it rip. I think his son's probably guilty. That is very suspicious shit over there.
Alex's housekeeper, Gloria Satterfield, allegedly tripped over Alex's dogs and fell down the steps of the Murdaugh family's hunting lodge. Alex was the only
What
witness.
the fuck?
After she died from her injuries, Alex told Satterfield's sons to sue him for insurance money. Murdaugh referred the sons
What
to
is
his
happening?
college roommate, lawyer Corey Fleming. Murdaugh and Fleming collaborated on the insurance settlement, but never told the brothers that they had in fact collected on two settlements, one for more than $500,000 and another for $3.8 million. Murdaugh.
This is crazy, huh?
Do you hear how mad she was at me?
No, I didn't hear.
I brushed her tail. Look at how much hair on her tail.
Yeah, she's shedding, I guess.
It's just her tail. It's
Nice.
all soft. It's very soft.
It looks soft. She's very soft.
There she is. What are you watching?
Just about a murderer and his awful family.
You want to feel the soft hair?
Mm-mm.
Why? Because it came from her tail?
Yeah, her tail. And her ass is always covered in little poop.
Why do you have a shirt here?
Oh, from yesterday.
That doesn't answer the question.
Because I took it off. Hey, Tetra. Yeah, I always got poop on her ass, usually because of her ass condition. So I imagine her tail hair has little poop particles on it. I don't want to touch that.
knew that one of the brothers, Brian, was mentally impaired and living on an annual salary of $14,000. Yet he watched as a bank foreclosed on Brian's trailer, knowing that a check from Lloyd's of London had already been deposited into Alex's own bank account. Murdaugh later admitted to stealing over $4 million from the Satterfields. When a reporter uncovered the Satterfield settlement, investigators started looking for other irregularities. They found that Murdaugh was ripping clients off left and right. Alex Murdaugh's empire of lies started to unravel in 2019. Alex and his wife Maggie had 2 sons, Paul and Buster. On the night of February 23rd, 2019, Paul Murdaugh and his 5 friends spent the night partying on Paul's boat. All 6 of them were underage. Paul's friends called him Timmy when he was drunk because he seemed to have a vicious alter ego when he was wasted. Witnesses say that Paul drove the boat for most of the...
Why would they... Like a Jekyll and Hyde thing? Why Timmy, though? Thanks to resub Odd Reality in the Prime. Confurious and Cozy. Because he was crazy drunk. Gotcha. I think the Murdaugh lineage is bad news so far. This is crazy. When my dad gave me like the breakdown of the trial, he mentioned nothing about his family, but there was so much goofy shit in the trial itself that I was still captivated. Apparently, during the trial, there was a part where someone started like pointing a gun around when like reenacting what happened, which was weird. And also that a dog was used for evidence because there was blood on its paw. And one of the jurors got tossed out because they were like disclosing information about the case, which you can't do, obviously. And as revenge, one of the juror claimed that they left an entire batch of eggs in the jury or in the courthouse or something to stink it up. Like, it was wild, the shit I was hearing. And he didn't even mention any of the family stuff, so I don't even think he knows. Easy tier 1. Dr. Ender in tier 1. Crazy Squirrel in the Prime. Noddle. And there's a Bubble Bowl, Backwood, and Give Sub Ant. The gun was the defense pointing it and saying, tempting. Feels like a weird strategy, I gotta tell you. I mean, I didn't pass the bar, but I'm gonna venture a guess that they probably tell you that's a bit of a no-no tactic. Is it tier 1? Pubo.
The night, except for a few minutes when Connor Cook had to take over because Paul was arguing with his girlfriend Megan Dowdy. Paul's friends say he assaulted Megan. The boat later crashed into a piling and they were all thrown from the boat. Everyone survived except for one, Mallory Beach, who was found dead a week later. After the crash, Alex visited Connor Cook in the hospital. Alex tried to convince Connor that Connor had been driving the boat, not Paul. Randolph Murdaugh III, the former solicitor, arrived at the hospital and stopped police from questioning his grandson. Alex and his wife Maggie traipsed through the crime scene. Eventually, Paul was charged with 2 counts of boating under the influence with great bodily injury and 1 count of boating under the influence causing death. Paul Murdaugh pleaded not guilty and hired a state senator who served on the Judiciary Committee
the Big Ten
to
gives
prepare his
subs, Rod.
defense.
Appreciate it. Thank you,
But Paul
Rod.
never stood trial because he was murdered alongside his mother on June 7th, 2020.
What in the
June
fuck
7th
is
was the
happening?
date when many things in Alex Murdaugh's life came to a head. Jeannie Seckinger,
wait,
chief financial officer at Murdaugh's law firm, confronted him about money that she believed he had stolen from the firm. During the conversation, Alex received a phone call that his father's health had taken a turn for the worse and he was dying in a Savannah hospital. Seckinger stopped her questions so he could go deal with his father.
Okay, hold on. That's his... Okay. All the names started to confuse me. That's his wife. Okay, now we've got to the wife and son murder. I thought this was a totally different son and mother murder. This is his wife and son murder part. Okay. All of the names started to throw me for a fucking loop. There is so much like death from like his own like family committing crimes now. Shit. There is so much to keep up with. No, this is a different murder. No. Maggie, 100% was Alex Murdaugh's wife, and Paul was his son, the one that he murdered. No, this is absolutely the wife and son murder part. This is a prime Jacob, Amicalico, and the resub Few and give sub Bruce Wayne.
But a short time later, she realized Alex remained in the office.
That check never even came through our books. He stole it, endorsed it, and put it in his Bank of America account, and we found a copy of it on his desk.
He asked her about his 401k balances, which he was worried about producing in the Beach family's wrongful death lawsuit. A hearing was scheduled in that lawsuit that could have compelled discovery of Alex's assets. The Beach family's lawyer said he planned to sue Alex and Maggie personally because they allegedly kept a beer refrigerator at the hunting lodge and underage kids were free to drink up. Given the scale of Alex's financial crimes, discovery of his assets would have revealed years of Murdaugh's criminality. Later that same night, Alex allegedly found Paul and Maggie dead outside the kennels at the Murdaugh's sprawling hunting estate. Alex called 911 shortly after 10 o'clock p.m. He told police that he had just returned home after spending most of the evening out. Police concluded that Paul had been shot at close range twice with a shotgun, and Maggie had been shot with a semi-automatic rifle. The murder weapons have never been recovered. A firearms expert said casings found near Maggie's body were from a rifle round called .300 Blackout. After the murders, Alex told his law partners that he screwed up and would pay back some of the money he had stolen. But by September 3rd, the firm had found more financial irregularities. Later that same day, the partners
I'm getting
Alex,
a very clear understanding of exactly what's gone on now.
Including Alex's brother Randy, agreed to wait until September 6th to announce the resignation. But the next day, on September 4th, Alex's friend Chris Wilson confronted him as well. See, Alex owed Wilson $200,000 after lying to him about a legal settlement. So Alex admitted to stealing from Chris and blamed his behavior on an opioid addiction. And then hours later, that same day after that conversation with Chris, Alex was shot in the head. Yes, seriously. Does this seem like a far-fetched Netflix series yet?
So, now we're at the part that I know. Everything that preceded this, fucking wild. No clue. But now we're getting into the part that my dad was talking about, and now I'm kind of in the know on where all this goes. Chat just educated me about this, so I have the spoilers here. But I guess I won't drop the spoilers. But I see now what has happened and how things have got to this point.
On September 4th, Alex Murdaugh called 911 and reported that while he was pulled over on the side of a road with a flat tire, someone had shot him.
I got a flat tire, and I stopped, and somebody stopped to help me. And when I turned my back,
Resub Twad, Link, and the Prime Roof, and Mitsuo,
oh,
and Mo.
okay, were you shot? Yes, but I mean, I'm okay.
Alex later admitted that he hired his cousin Eddie to shoot him. So Alex's remaining son Buster could
get the life insurance.
$10 million life insurance policy. But apparently cousin Eddie wasn't up to the job because the gunshot
Good picture.
wound was
National
just a blaze
Lampoon.
that temporarily blinded Alex. Eddie would also turn out to be Alex's oxycodone dealer. Alex later admitted that he stole from his law partners and clients to fund his addiction to painkillers. According to
Hold on, then my dad's calling me about the Murdaugh shit that I just sent him with this. Hold on. Hey. Yeah, well, did you even know about all of the Murdaugh shit with his family? Like how his son is most likely responsible for deaths as well?
Yes.
You
And his son, like, was in the boat accident.
yeah, the boat.
Yeah, the whole deal. I mean, yeah, I know all the background of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then how he tried to set up, like, his own...
Yeah, I just got to that point. Cousin Eddie to, like, a hitman to shoot him for the life insurance policy for Buster.
Yeah, and then they fucked that whole thing up.
Okay, I didn't know if you knew any of that because you didn't mention it. That shit's crazy.
Well, see, that's why I haven't been playing any games. I got so into this shit. I'm like,
Yeah, no, this is absolutely wild. I had no idea it was like so deep reaching.
I know. See, that's what I'm telling you. So you think it's pretty cool, right?
Well, cool is like probably a weird word to use for it, but like it's fascinating. Like it feels like it's some kind of crazy movie.
I know. I know. I know. I mean, it's like, and there's so much content like on YouTube about
Yeah.
all the people in Alec Murdaugh and the whole deal. I mean, he was a piece of shit for 20 years.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, well, his whole family dating back to the 40s was a piece of shit.
Oh, I know, the whole thing. And the thing about him is he thought he was like invincible.
Yeah.
Like, and like his lawyers didn't want him to go on the stand, but he insisted because he thought he could outsmart everybody.
That's what the video is talking about. How against like better judgment or better advice, he still testified, which fucked him.
Yeah, exactly. If he wouldn't have testified, he would have got off. But he was so cocky and so screwed up on drugs that he thought he could go up there and put on a big act because what they said was he was one of the best lawyers when it came to like defending people. Like he would like act and he could turn it on like in an instant.
Yeah.
So many trials like that.
Well, yeah, when his whole family made money suing the railroads and shit. So yeah, yeah,
That's what they specialized in was the railroad thing.
yeah.
So that piqued your interest.
Yeah, no, I had no idea it was this wild, but yeah, it's crazy.
Are you gonna do a video on it?
Well, I don't know. I'm just kind of learning about it right now from Legal Eagle, who did a really good breakdown. If you need like a recap, that's why I sent it to you. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I know. So the Bucks signed Baker Mayfield.
I don't care about the Bucks. It's not. I don't care. I don't care about Baker Mayfield. I'm gonna go back to watching Alex Murdaugh testifying and shit. Yeah, I don't care about the Bucks and Baker Mayfield or whatever. It doesn't matter. Yeah, that's well. He's got him put in the video. So I've seen a couple of the clips. Yep. Yeah, basketball was good. Just the same crew as always, really. All right. Yeah, all the same guys. All right. Yeah, he did. So I'm streaming right now, so I'll call you back later and we can talk more about Murdaugh. Okay. I'll let him know. All right. Love you. Bye. Yeah, he's really into the whole Murdaugh shit. He got like encyclopedic knowledge on this whole thing, apparently. He didn't even mention the family stuff, so I thought that'd be news to him. Thanks to the Prime, not Technoblade and the Resub Weeds, Oddball, Waterboy, Iverson, and the Bits Universal. And the Prime Lynn. Yeah, no, this whole family's rotten. Well, I haven't heard anything about the mother, so maybe she didn't do anything terrible. I have no idea. But we're only 10 minutes in. There's still plenty of room.
Alex, on some days, he was taking up to 60 oxycodone pills. So
Which is
here's
crazy.
The house of cards the prosecutors were trying to knock down. A very influential family headed by a man with an insatiable appetite for pills. The double murder of Maggie and Paul, who were mowed down on Murdaugh family property, the suicide for hire insurance fraud scheme, and, oh yeah, how could we forget, 99 additional charges by the state attorney general for embezzlement, money laundering, and tax fraud. First was the trial for the murders of Paul and Maggie. The trial was fittingly in South Carolina's 14th Judicial Circuit, the very same circuit for which his family had supplied 3 generations of solicitors. The prosecution really wanted to use the suicide for hire plot to demonstrate that Alex had a propensity for violent schemes.
Real quick though, was his plan actually to die? Like, did Alex Murdaugh hire cousin Eddie, goofball McGee, red-blooded patriot fucking wild maniac to come shoot him and kill him? That's wild. So his plan was actually to die. He said, come shoot me in the head. And then he survived. He's like, damn it. Time to change plan. Wow. Hey, a lot of things can be said about Alex Murdaugh, but God damn it, he gave it 110%. This man was ready to literally kill himself so that way his son could still have some fucking cheated funds. $10 million life insurance policy. He's out there giving it his all.
As the prosecutor said, when the hounds are at the door, when Hannibal is at the gates for Alex Murdaugh, violence happens. The judge initially ruled that this incident was off limits for the criminal trial. However, during the trial, the defense asked a witness about whether it was possible that drug gangs killed Paul and Maggie. The judge then reversed himself, ruling that the questions opened the door to prosecutors introducing evidence about Alex and cousin Eddie, since Alex was admittedly associated with a drug dealer. The trial's biggest bombshell was an unsent Snapchat video.
Yes, this is the one that my dad was talking about.
Alex told police he had last seen his son and wife 90 minutes before he found their bodies. He said Maggie and Paul were down at the kennels checking on the dogs. So he took a nap, watched TV, then called and left Maggie a message saying he was going to go check on his mother. Alex visited his mother and then arrived at the kennels around 10, where he found them dead. He repeatedly denied being at the kennels before he found the bodies. As it turns out, Paul filmed a Snapchat video just minutes before he was killed, showing a Labrador Retriever wagging its tail. He apparently intended to send the video to his friend Rogan Gibson, whose chocolate lab was staying at the Murdaugh kennels. Several witnesses testified that they could hear Alex's voice in the background of the video. Did the Snapchat video influence Alex's decision to testify on his own behalf? Almost certainly yes. The very first
yeah, and I think that is very clearly his voice in the Snapchat video. Very clearly. Things that you said, Pierre.
Alex did on the witness stand was fess up that he lied about being at the kennels. Alex admitted it was his voice on the video.
Were you in fact at the kennels at 8:44 p.m. on the night Maggie and Paul were murdered?
I was.
Did you?
So then he absolutely just admits to a lie right there. I do want to point out, this man's got some wild hair coloration here. This looks like a weird slider in a Dark Souls creator. He looks like a French fry with like some cheese sauce on the top. That shit is going hard.
You lied to SLED Agent Owen and Deputy Laura Rutland on the night of June 7th.
I did lie to them, and I'm so sorry that I did.
Other than lying to them about going to the kennel, I was very
Holy
cooperative
shit.
in every aspect of this investigation. Very cooperative, except for maybe the most important fact of all, that you were at the murder scene with the victims just minutes before they died, Prosecutor Waters said. Uh-oh. This admission was just the tip of the iceberg that Alex was about to hit. In every criminal trial, the defendant has a constitutional right to testify or to remain silent. The right to remain silent during a criminal trial means that the jury is legally prohibited from taking a defendant's choice not to testify into account when deciding his or her guilt. The prosecution can't refer to the defendant's decision not to testify as an indicator of guilt. Testifying allows the defendant to tell his own story, but he doesn't get to do it unmediated. When a defendant chooses to testify, the prosecutor gets to cross-examine that defendant. It is rarely a comfortable experience for the defendant, and prosecutors love it. A defendant's testimony...
Yeah, that seems like a fucking... I didn't even know that's how that worked. That seems like a fucking terrible idea ever to testify. What, like, if you could just say nothing and it can't be used against you, why would you ever testify? Unless you're, like, already losing and you think that your testimony could somehow save it. unless you're actually innocent. But even in that case, though, like, there's a very famous video called Don't Talk to Cops, and it gives reasoning why, even no matter what, even though you've done nothing, if you're squeaky clean, you should never talk to officers. And the reasoning basically boils down to, the second you do, even when totally innocent, you can be worked, and it can fuck you in the long run. So the optimal play is always, just stay silent. No matter what. Thanks to resub Profit, Football, Prime, Wizard, Audits, Turquoise, the gift sub Croak, and the Prime Dalek. That is interesting. I didn't realize that's how that worked. It seems like doing it, like testifying is always going to be rough. Because, well, this guy is a lawyer, I guess, in this case, but for most people, you're not lawyers, so you should just let your team talk on your behalf, because otherwise, during cross-examination, everything can just be immediately fucked, even though you're innocent. But maybe there are cases where it works out in their favor, and I just don't know which ones those are. Who knows? I'm not an expert. I'm literally just now learning about how that functions.
It opens the door to impeachment. Impeachment is just attacking someone's credibility. Impeachment can happen in a lot of ways. For example, being biased, or prior inconsistent statements, and past criminal convictions. When a person doesn't have a criminal record to worry about or hasn't made any inconsistent statements, then testifying could be a safer proposition. Emphasis on the could be, because it's not easy to face cross-examination under any circumstances. Even a defendant with no skeletons in the closet can be tricked
he's even
up.
talking about this
We've
right now.
seen some high-profile defendants decide to testify in their own defense to mixed results. Self-defense cases often lend themselves to a defendant's testimony. In those cases, there has to be some evidence that the defendant perceived imminent danger of physical injury, and sometimes
Good
it
point.
can be hard
Didn't
to
think
show
about
that without the defendant's testimony. Kyle Rittenhouse testified that under the circumstances as he perceived them, he didn't have a choice other than to use the amount of force that he did. Rittenhouse stood up fairly well under cross-examination, and at just 18 years old, he really didn't have much in the way of a criminal history or other impeachable matters. In contrast, Elizabeth Holmes was on trial for defrauding patients, doctors, and investors by lying to them about Theranos' technology and business relationships. The subject of her trial was whether she spent years knowingly making false claims. Holmes had already given testimony under oath in civil suits and government investigations, which made testifying a dicier proposition. During her criminal trial, she blamed other people and claimed that her lies were just misunderstandings. When she said she couldn't remember the details of a certain topic, the prosecutor essentially impeached her with testimony that she had previously given to the SEC where she certainly did remember. And the jury, of course, convicted her.
Lightly, might I add. I believe she still only received 10 years. That should have been a life sentence. The shit she did should have been life. And she still got 10 years. So, testifying, I guess, to some degree still did kind of work out for her. Unfortunately. Thanks to Tier 1 Stank, Tier 1 Canola Oil, and the resub Hulk, Soylent, and Lost Souls, and Squilliam, and L. Yeah, she even got pregnant in order to try and push the trial further. I remember that. I've talked about that. Elizabeth Holmes is an absolute villain. Elizabeth Holmes is an evil, evil woman who got a very light sentence. Thanks, resub Dank, and the Tier 1 Kaze.
So back to Alex Murdaugh. He's a lawyer with experience prosecuting and defending criminal cases, and also probably a narcissist. So it's not surprising that he thought he could handle himself on the witness stand. However, a defendant's credibility is absolutely crucial, which is why prosecutors try so hard to impeach. If the jury thinks the defendant is a liar, things go south quickly. And it seems like that's exactly what happened to Alex. Alex claimed that he told one whopper about his alibi, that he wasn't at the kennels before the murders. But other than that, he was cooperative with investigators and truthful in his testimony. But prosecutor Creighton Waters was able to show a pattern of duplicity. Quote, "The second you're confronted with facts you can't deny, you immediately come up with a new lie," he said. The prosecutor was able to call out numerous lies by Murdaugh. For example, when Murdaugh's plan to get murdered by Cousin Eddie failed, he quickly created an elaborate story. While he was recovering in the hospital, he brought in a sketch artist to create a fake picture of the non-existent stranger who allegedly shot him. When Alex's brother Randy overheard Alex trying to bribe a nurse to let him use her phone, he thought it was suspicious. And brother Randy called the police and the story began to unravel.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Sled sketch artist and spent...
Man, this guy just straight up looks evil. He looks actually soulless. Those are some hollow, empty devil eyes right there. 100%. Sometimes people just look the part. Christ. Thanks to the resub, Suck Thy Ball, Minor, Benjamin, and Tier 1 Bond, and the Prime Caden, and Zim. Emperor Palpatine. Yeah, I guess.
Period of time with her, going forward and creating an image of the supposed assailant.
I did sit down with her. I was in the hospital, and they came in, sat down with me, asked me a bunch of questions. I answered their questions, and
yes, you did. You sat there.
It came up with a composite. Yes, sir.
Sat there and answered their questions just as effortlessly and convincingly as you've been trying to do for the past 2 days. Isn't that correct?
No, sir. That's not true.
The prosecutor also showed that Alex would say whatever was necessary to help his own case. Alex told the jury that when he found the bodies, he didn't check their pulses before calling 911 because there wasn't enough time. But in an earlier statement to police, Alex claimed that when he found his family murdered, he checked their pulses and then dialed 911. The prosecutor's reconstruction of the timeline revealed that only 20 seconds passed between the time Murdaugh parked his car at the kennels and when he called 911. So as soon as Alex was confronted with this seemingly impossible timeline, he came up with a new story. The prosecutor asked Alex if he killed his wife and child. When asked if he knew who did it, Alex also said no. But in an earlier interview with investigators, Alex had actually implicated his groundskeeper. He also told the jury that someone angry about the death of Mallory Beach committed the murders. These inconsistencies undermined Alex's credibility. Then there's the mess with Alex's financial crimes. The prosecution argued that Alex's financial crimes couldn't be separated from the murders because exposure of his vast financial crimes was one of the motives
speaks to his
for killing
characters.
Maggie and Paul.
Well, not only that, I imagine that also helps to demonstrate, make a character profile, right? I don't know if that is actually something that's usable in court, but doesn't that also serve to poke holes in the credibility since all of these financial crimes hinged on a bunch of lies and embezzlement and all of that? Or is that not allowed? Thanks, resub Papa Cat. Yes, for the jury. Okay. Okay. I figured, because it'd be silly not to, right? Like, you'd need to talk about the financial crimes, even though they are clearly one of the motives. Even if it wasn't necessarily a motive, I still feel like that's pertinent to the case. Since he's making a testimony, you need to be able to trust him as a person, like his character. So his financial crimes should be able to showcase, like, this isn't exactly a reliable narrator on things, right? At least I would think.
The defense countered that the financial crimes had nothing to do with the murders, and that the prosecution lacked proof that the two were related in any way. During direct examination, Alex explained that he committed a lot of financial crimes because of his drug addiction. Alex's lawyers portrayed the admission of wrongdoing as a willingness to come clean. They argued that a person who admits to lying isn't necessarily a person who commits violence, which is true in a general sense. However, was it a good strategy in this particular case to admit to years of financial fraud? Not really. On cross-examination,
shocking. That's shocking.
Scored several key points. Prosecutor Waters held up a stack of papers relating to clients whom Alex stole from. Quote, "Every single one of these, you had to sit down and look someone in the eye and convince them that you were on their side when you were not."
Wow, that's hardball.
Do you remember even one of them?
If you ask me questions, but I can't remember sitting down with Dion.
Alex's response? "What I admit is I misled them. I did wrong, and that I stole their money. What Prosecutor Waters was getting at was this. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Alex Murdaugh is sitting there and looking at you and convinced you of something, but you shouldn't believe him. Just look at how he lied in the past.
That's
Moreover,
strong
Alex
as fuck.
testified that all of his financial bad deeds were caused by his drug habit, which was costing him as much as $60,000 a week.
Who put this thing together? Me! That's who!
But maintaining his drug habit and hiding his financial crimes could have motivated him to violence, especially since he already admitted to a suicide for hire plot to funnel money to his surviving son. Finally, Alex has now confessed to several of the 99 indicted financial crimes. He's accused of stealing about $8.8 million, including embezzling about $3.7 million in 2019 alone. If he hadn't
That's quite a
testified,
bit.
all of his financial
Jesus.
fraud, ripping off disabled clients, stealing money from a dead housekeeper's sons, would
What?
have been front and center in this case. After both sides rested, it was the jury's turn to deliberate. And to be fair, there were weaknesses on both sides. The prosecution didn't find the two murder weapons. They didn't have any direct witnesses to the murders, and they lacked forensic evidence that juries sometimes look for in this age of
Exit
CSI,
Tier 1
like a victim's blood
tiring
on
and
the
the
defendant's
resub
clothes.
Labisky, Zen,
Prosecutors
Crunchy
guessed
Crow,
that the pair were
and
killed at around
the
9
Prime
p.m.,
B.
but they couldn't pinpoint a time of death with certainty. The alleged motive could also have struck some jurors as kind of weak. While murdering someone to cover up a lesser crime is not unheard of, killing your own wife and son over some financial crimes, it could be a bridge too far. And since the prosecution claimed that cousin Eddie left drugs for Alex near the kennels, the defense speculated that Eddie or Eddie's dealer friends may have been the real culprits. But these gaps in the prosecution's case are to be expected. Slam dunk prosecution cases often don't go to trial. And whatever weaknesses the prosecution may have had, the defense had vastly more. Alex said all of his bad deeds were caused by his drug habit. But maintaining his drug habit and hiding his financial crimes could have motivated him to violence, especially since he already admitted to a suicide for hire plot to funnel money to his surviving son.
Yeah, I feel like
The
that's
Beach
just a nail in the
family's-
coffin. It shows that he's willing to, like, A, die, or B, have someone kill. It's violent, right? Like, I feel like that is just truly a home run of evidence. Like, the importance of that to this can't be understated. And I mean, I guess it worked clearly. He got 2 life sentences, but still, I feel like that should have just been so fucking free right there. These are the Prime, the resub Sky and the Prime Yeet and the resub Fabi and Saint. They figured out that he'd have to be doing $50K worth of drugs a week to spend all that money. Bruh, popping 60 oxys a day? That sounds like he probably was at 50K like a week somehow. Exit Tier 1, Swamped in the Prime. Gabe. Exit Prime Cucumber. That's a month's prescription in a day. Yeah. Nah, that man was fucking popping those oxys like M&Ms apparently. Exit Prime, Kemp and Shaboy.
Lawyer Chris Tinsley testified at trial that he intended to sue Maggie and Alex personally, which could have resulted in a huge verdict that would have destroyed their wealth.
He gets up close in my face and says, "Hey, Bo, what's this I'm hearing about what you're saying? If you don't think I can burn your house down and I'm not going to do everything you're wrong, you need to settle this case." So I took it as he tried to intimidate me. He didn't intimidate me and sort of bully me into backing off.
As for the weapons, prosecutors said casings for bullets from a .300 blackout rifle were found near Maggie's body. And the Murdaughs owned a rifle chambered in .300 blackout, and the weapon is now missing. Alex also couldn't account for the clothing he was wearing on the day of the murders. His clothes had never been found. His mother's caregiver testified that after the murders, Alex tried to remind her about what he was wearing.
I guess it's easy in hindsight, but I feel like even if I was in the court as this was unfolding, the second it came to that point, both of those in conjunction, I'd be like, well, he fucking did it. Oh, what kind of coincidence is that? Oh, so they were killed with 300 blackout rounds. Oh, you have a weapon with 300 blackout. That's a weird coincidence. Can you bring it in so we can just make sure like everything's, all good? Oh, it's missing. Well, what happened to it? Oh, you don't know. Oh. Okay, well, what about your clothes? Can we, like the clothes you were wearing on that night, maybe they picked up some forensic evidence from the real killers. Oh, you lost your clothes. Are you telling me a burglar came in the middle of the night while you were sleeping and took the fucking clothes off your back? Even your dirty goddamn undies, he took them? Oh. Like, what the fuck? This is outrageous.
He also tried to convince her that she misremembered the amount of time he spent with his mother that night.
He said, "You remember the shirt I was wearing, that Vinnie Vine shirt?" That's what he said to me. I don't remember that. I don't remember him wearing that shirt that day.
Alex said he was there for about 50 minutes. The caregiver told the police it was 10 to 20. All told, this is a case where Alex Murdaugh had to take the stand. Alex previously told police that he had not been to the kennels before the murders. The prosecution was able to prove through that Snapchat video that he almost certainly was. Under those circumstances, Alex had to explain the inconsistency himself. His defense attorney couldn't massage those facts or explain them away. Alex had to do what plenty of defendants have tried in the past. I lied about this, but I'm telling the truth about that.
Impossible.
By itself, that's not impossible.
No,
to do.
that is
The problem is
impossible.
everything else. All of Alex's financial crimes and the suicide for hire scheme, and his credibility was shot. His testimony ended up sounding like something else entirely. I lied about this, and I'm lying about that. The speed of the jury's verdict, just 3 hours of deliberation after
nice.
a trial lasting a month and a half.
That's a gold split.
Speaks volumes.
Yeah.
The day after the verdict was read, Alex Murdaugh was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences for murdering his wife and son. Rightfully so.
Yeah,
Agreed.
credibility in front of a judge or jury is everything. Whether you're a lawyer or a defendant, your credibility
What
is
a
often all
fucking
you have. And
story.
once you lose
What an
it,
adventure.
You never get it back. It's been fascinating to watch all the crazy twists and turns in the Murdaugh case. And one thing that has helped keep track of everything is today's sponsor, Morning Brew. Because that's my
Holy
favorite way to
shit.
catch up with pop culture
Thanks
and
for
news.
some
In fact,
Pegasus
they've
and the
been covering the
Prime
Murdaugh
Viking
trial for weeks
and
now.
Blade.
When I wake up, Morning Brew is the first thing that I read. I've actually been subscribed to Morning Brew for forever. It's one of my absolute favorite newsletters, and I'm thrilled to tell you why. Because Morning Brew, if you didn't already know,
What happened
is
to
a free
Cousin
daily
Eddie?
newsletter
That's a
delivered
great
Monday through
question. I'm gonna look it
Sunday.
up
Gets you
while
up to
he's
speed
doing
on
the
business,
sponsor.
finance, tech, and law in just 5 minutes. And it provides a fantastic quick summary of the most important issues while being witty, irreverent, and informative. And did I mention it's completely free? This week, I learned all about ChatGPT on college campuses, Amazon backing out of building HQ2 because, they're firing lots of people instead, and Chris Rock's new stand-up special.
He was part of the
Basically,
trial.
Exactly the mix of news that I'm actually interested in, and the stuff that I didn't even know I wanted to know about. And it's all written in a hilarious style. Morning Brew is one of the few emails that I actually open every single day. So, Legal Eagles, this one is a complete no-brainer. Morning Brew is completely free, and it takes less than
He's
15
right now in
seconds to
custody
subscribe.
on
Just click
charges
the link that's
including
on
lying to
screen right
police
now
and
or in
owning
the
a
description to get
firearm.
Morning Brew for free. And not only will you get a newsletter that you'll actually read, you'll actually help out this channel too. So click on the link below to get Morning Brew
That's
right
the most
away.
recent update.
And after that, click on this link over here for more Legal Eagle, or I'll see you in court.
As always, fucking amazing work from Legal Eagle. What an incredible breakdown. Holy shit. That was wild. That was wild. I see why this already has a Netflix series about it. It makes sense now. Thanks to the resub 80s guy. Thanks to the bits in and the bits Jack. No, I don't know what that is, Jack. He's being held for lying to the police and not his Hitman activity. Brother, I don't know what to tell you. From what I've read, it looks like he's in police custody because of lying to the authorities and owning a firearm. Nothing about nothing about being involved in this suicide for hire plot. Which I will say is very surprising to hear as well, since it is open and shut now. That he himself admits it, like it's all real. And they're like, oh, well, I guess your honesty, we can forgive that. Or maybe because he didn't die? I don't know.